welcome to the October SOF Pod. Let's start with a poem. It's called The Smile. At the moment of brutal disappointment, when you realise that your hopes were illusions and you're ashamed of your gullibility and angry with the world for stringing you along, for letting this foolish game go on so long, and your future seems bleak and stark without those filters of delusion, and you survey the wreckage of your life, wondering if you were ever who you thought you were. Maybe you can sense a part of you that's not a part of this, that's standing outside this psychic storm, untouched by the chaos, peering through the rubble and the clouds of dust, looking on and smiling, knowing that this damage is only superficial, just to your facade, not your foundation, and that when the debris is cleared away, there will be more space inside for your essence to shine through. So we're going to take a minute now of silence. So just maybe close your eyes, take some intentional breaths. As we come back into the room, just take a really deep breath, be really intentional, or allow yourself to arrive and settle. So, for those of you who've never been to a School of Facilitation Community Pod, welcome. SOF, as she's fondly known, not SOF, SOF, is this, you've walked into the collective space. So this is a space for facilitators, trainers, coaches, educators, who want to keep evolving and growing themselves, basically, if I'm really honest. And as many of you know, this is, you are professionals at probably being lonely without realizing it. You work with people all day, but do you work with people who get you? And this is your community, this is the space. So we do a free Friday every month, and we always have a guest. I'll start with some musings and some noticing. So this time last month, I was actually on an aeroplane, but I was texting Phil because they had Wi-Fi. It's a bit bonkers. As I was coming back from Manila, so I've had a 6 weeks of travel for both work and play. But in that time, it's been becoming more and more obvious that, you know, what we do at School of Facilitation is really needed out in the world. And what I mean by that is helping people become better at facilitating, understanding what it takes to design learning, to design training, and then helping people being able to sort of stand up and do the do. Because I think many of us, if we look back at our own personal journeys, learned to do this through osmosis and copying other people and just seeing how they did it. There's not many people out there teaching this. But let me share something with you that I've also noticed. There is a lot of shit out there. So if you find me on Instagram, I'm quite happy in that space. And so I follow quite a few people who are proclaimed coaches and influencers in our space. And so I went off to one of their retreats last week, being named a business retreat. And to be frank, I was shocked at the standard. Listen, any of you would have just knocked it out of the park to what they did. And what I mean by that was the way it was constructed, the way it was set up, the elements of safety. Let me just give you an example. We were invited to go outside in Ibiza in the afternoon sunshine, but it wasn't signaled that that's what we were doing. So no one had sun cream, no one had a hat on. We stood out there for an hour, and that was just the start of it. So there were little things like that. There was no great framing at the beginning, like what we were doing. Yeah, but these people are millionaires and they make their money. And I was just like, wow. And then I look behind it, smoke and mirrors is the phrase, and emperor's new clothes. So it just really dawned on me that there is this, so there's the corporate world that all of us are very familiar with, I'm guessing. I'm looking around the screen, there's lots of nods. And then there's this new world that's come out in the last 10 years of gurus, sage on the stage. And they will tell you that if you don't sort of believe into them, your vibe isn't high enough, or it's your mindset. And it's just fascinating. And a lot of them do circular selling. So they all sell to one another, but they all do prices like 5 grand, 10 grand, 15 grand. And people pay it. That was my other shock. So just, I sort of, yes, I paid 1,700, but there was a lady who paid £3,500 to be there. And it was pitched at 5 grand. It was, and I don't really think I came up with much other than some interesting contacts. So why am I sharing that with you is to let you know, you probably do really good stuff in the world. You just don't have a comparison for that. And to trust yourself. And I think that was the bit as well. I think it's really easy for us to look for external validation all the time. And therefore, that's why sometimes we see, yeah, Catherine, you get hooked in to that kind of world because there's a perception you're getting that validation, or you think you need to do it. I was also meditating this morning with Laura Beckingham and drinking some nice tea, and it was like, why? What is it about that need to always go outward to get reassurance that I'm doing the right thing? So I thought to share those musings and mutterings with you. And I think it's all coming up because many of you know next summer we're going to have a festival called SOFest, and the tickets go on sale on Monday. I have to tell you, I'm absolutely shitting myself. Now, 2 of you know that very clearly because I've said that to you, Phil and Nicole, who are sitting in this room. I've been very, and I think Catherine as well, but these are not high price tickets, but in my head, I think for some people, they're like, oh my God, £1,000. But I'm like, guys, it's 3 days, 2 nights accommodation, all your food, 12 speakers, 16 workshops, a beautiful space that we're going to go and hang out in Essex, a lake to swim in. But part of my brain is like, oh my God. So I'm just flagging that for you. I'm also signaling that the tickets go on sale, and they're the early bird tickets, and they'll only be available in October. So if you're pondering that you want to come along, check your diaries for Monday. There'll be a payment plan. We've also realized that needs to happen in this day and age. People need to be able to spread the cost. So yeah, I think that's all the stuff that's been coming up in my head. And that's also around, it's a different world. I have in my head that you're all consumers versus businesses. So I have this sort of B2C, business to consumer mentality, versus going into business to business. You know, we go into the corporates. I don't mind writing a big number down for a corporate because I know they've got the budgets. Anyway, that's my shit to work through. The dates, Lizzie, are Tuesday the 10th of June to Thursday the 12th. 10th to the 12th. Purposely did it in the week because a lot of people said they didn't want to do a weekend. Some people might then tell me they want to do a weekend. We're never going to win. But today we're going to talk about business, our businesses, with Murray. So I have heard about Murray for the last couple of years through people actually in the community, in the collective. And he, so I ended up on one of his quarterly sessions about 2-3 months ago, Murray, was it?
Yeah, about that, yeah.
Yeah, and therefore I was like, ooh, I like what you do. Come and talk to the team because I think they're like what you do as well. So Murray, can you introduce yourself and describe what it is you do?
Yeah, certainly. So I'm Murray Cowell, and what I do is I help trainers to find more clients, to increase their rates and reduce their hours of work, sometimes all three at the same time. And the purpose of doing that is that they can finally achieve the lifestyle that they had in mind when they first set up their training business. Because a lot of us go into training with one idea about what it's going to be like, and then discover that it's very different. And a lot of that is to do with the business side of running a training business. And we all went into these businesses because we like training and developing people, and we like to see people evolve and grow before our very eyes. That's what's so fantastic about training. And we didn't go into training to be accountants and administrators and marketers and salespeople. But those elements of running a business are important if you want to be successful. So I work with people on, particularly on the marketing and the sales side of things, to help them to build a sustainable and consistent, predictable stream of incoming business.
Love
That's
it.
in essence what I do.
And it's on the corporate side of things, isn't it? Rather than
So I tend to work with there's quite a wide range of different training topics, but what they all have in common is that I work with clients who are selling into corporations, and it's mostly medium to large corporations, some small businesses as well. But it's, as you say, Kirsty, it's the corporates that have the budgets. So that's the most lucrative business that you can come by.
And I think that's music to many people's ears in this room at this time. Rich, just a quick show of hands. Who think it's been a weird year for working with corporates? Anyone had sort of a strange-ish vibe? There's sort of hands going up. In some sectors, for sure, it's just been slightly odd that either there's nothing or they want you, and then you write proposals and then they all bloody disappear. So there's and quite a few challenges around like financials and proposals. So today, when Murray and I were preparing for this, Murray was like, literally, we can go anywhere. What do you want to do? So I said, why don't we ask the team, what do you want to do? So we've got 3 topics that could potentially be, you could talk about. So we've got finding clients, niching at its different forms, marketing in the modern era. So what do you want to discuss this morning? So this is Murray really like showing us how he can flex and flow his way of working. Oh, it's always a classic. Got 31 of you, Mark, have voted, 33. Who else? Anyone else? There's 40. There's 50 of us in the room today. Oh my life. Okay, a few more votes, please. 10 more to go. Oh yeah, but that doesn't count you and I, does it, Murray?
No, that's right. And I noticed a couple of people have temporarily left the chat for a moment. So
rude. What's that all about? Okay, I think, has everyone had the opportunity to vote? Yeah, fantastic. Okay, let me share the results. Not a surprise. You're gonna have to come back, Murray. But it's about finding clients. And then 7 said they wanted to talk about niching, and 6 wanted to talk about marketing in the modern era. But an overwhelming 26 of you wanted to talk about finding clients. Okay, so let's dive in. So I hand over to Murray and let him weave his magic.
Let me riff on the topic of finding clients. So I have to say I'm not surprised that is the topic that comes out on the top. I think these 3 topics are all interlinked in some way, and so for those of you who voted for niching and marketing in the modern era, we may touch on those topics anyway, and I'm sure we'll have time for a few questions as well. So the problem, as I see it, is that most people's journey as an independent trainer starts with leaving some kind of corporate job. That's usually the situation. That was certainly my journey. I had a background in corporates. I was an L&D manager for a little while. I worked in HR for 10 or 11 years. And then I left that. I left my last job as senior employee relations advisor at IBM to become an independent trainer. And I started out training negotiation skills. And to begin with, the work tends to come relatively easily because you've got your first degree network. You can tap up people that you know. Everyone's excited that you've gone out into business on your own account, and they're very happy to pass you leads and referrals. And so usually things start out quite well, but that method of finding clients tends to have a limited lifespan. So after a while, it starts to slightly dry up. You've had all the referrals that you can get from your first degree network. There's only so many times you can ask people if they know anybody who wants your services, and the work tends to start to trickle away. And what happens then is that what I see is that most people have an over-reliance on that first degree network, on random encounters on LinkedIn and maybe other networking events, because it's not all about LinkedIn. It may be that you're going to some in-person networking events or other networking forums online and getting some business that way. And you may get referrals or repeat business from previous clients. And all those leads are absolutely fantastic. They're usually very strong, that because you're coming referred by somebody else. So you're borrowing the trust that people have in their relationship with the person who's referring you. They're usually fairly easy to close, and you get good business out of it. The shortcoming of that approach to finding clients is that it's necessarily random. So it's inconsistent, it's unpredictable, and it's very, very difficult to scale a business on the basis of lead generation methods that are inconsistent and unpredictable, if not impossible. And so then what happens is you get into the classic feast or famine cycle. Anybody recognize that? And also training clusters at different times of the year. So you've got from New Year to Easter, that's a kind of peak time for training. Then it all goes quiet over Easter, and then you've got from Easter until the schools break up, which is a peak time. And then all clients, we've been talking about the mystery of the disappearing clients in corporate. Everyone vanishes in August, don't they? It's really difficult to get hold of anybody or get any sense out of anyone. And then this time of year, September, October, November, is another peak time because everyone's trying to get everything done by the year end, get everything done before the world goes mad at Christmas. So there's a natural clustering to the way that training works, which means that your revenues are highly likely to have peaks and troughs in them. And without a clear system for finding clients, what that means is that in the lean times, it's very tempting to just accept whatever work comes your way. And I see a lot of people who are doing work that doesn't really value their skills as much as it should. So they're being paid less than they're worth. And that means you have to work too many hours or too many days in order to make a living. And then in the peak times, you don't have time to do the relationship building that's involved in marketing. So it means that your pipeline dries up. And when the peak times finish, you're back into a famine cycle. That's really why feast and famine works. So an antidote and really that's a vicious circle, because you don't have time for your marketing. So you don't have enough leads coming in. So you have to take whatever comes your way. So you're not getting paid enough. You're not working with the right clients. It's deeply unsatisfying. But you have to work too many hours and days. So you don't have enough time, and the whole cycle repeats itself.
Murray, when I first started out, someone who'd gone before me said, Kirsty, be prepared to split your time into 3. And it still stands in many ways. So he's like, a third of your time is around the work that you do, the delivery, the design, the consulting. A third of your time is around your administration and running the business. And then a third of your time is connecting, networking, and we would call it marketing and sales now. And in fairness, that is really true, but I can absolutely relate to what you're saying, that and I know from talking with many of you here today, we do that piece where we're one-man bands, we don't have someone else to work alongside us. We're doing it all. So you're either in delivery mode, you come back, you're then like quick, get the invoices out. Then it's like maybe a quick LinkedIn post or two, have a think. Some of you might have newsletters, get that written once a month. And it's sort of just circular. And it's like, what can we do? What needs to happen to like break the pattern of feast and famine, Murray?
Yeah, it's such a good question. And that advice that you've just related there is very wise advice. And I would really strongly recommend allocating roughly those proportions. And it will vary for each individual, but that's a pretty good rough estimate. A third of the time actually delivering the work, a third of the time doing your admin and whatever else you have to do, and a third of the time doing the business building, the marketing, and the new business development. It can be quite hard to break out of the cycle. And here's the paradox: is that at some point it means turning down paid work that you're being offered in order to do marketing and new business development. And on the face of it, that doesn't make any sense. It seems like, why would I turn down a paying client in order to go and look for another client who doesn't yet exist?
So some things that have sort of changed in my head, though, is sometimes that work comes through that you could get paid. Is it a big positive yes, or is it a bit of a, I could do that, but can you? Does
Exactly.
it make your heart sing? Quick show of hands, who has ever taken on a piece of work knowing deep down it's probably not for you and someone else could do it? Yeah.
I've
So
definitely done that.
I have as well. And it was like in that moment of panic. But I wonder, like, something I do and I really enjoy doing is finding the other people that could do that work and passing it over to somebody else. And what I am really clear now is if they're doing it directly into the business, I'm introducing them to a client of mine, 10% referral fee. So you're still getting something to honor the fact that you've built that relationship, you've built that connection with the client. But you're giving something to someone else. How good's that? You're giving some work to another person, and then they go in and build that. Or if you're up for an associate model, that's the other way to do it as well. If you love doing the sales piece and writing proposals and pitching in, and you've got someone who would love to do the work, then why not go that way as well? That's just some of my
I think either of those options are definitely viable, and it's a good way to really deal with those requests that you get that it's not quite your sweet spot. And so part of this, and I did say that niching would come into this, because part of that is what that implies is knowing what your sweet spot is, knowing who are the clients that you really want to work with that are, and I would say that it's not just the most profitable clients, although that does make sense to focus on who are the clients who are most profitable. But you're a person, you're running your own business, so you've got a wide degree of choice about how you decide who you want to work with. And it can be people that you like working with. It can be the people who, the type of clients who really put into practice what you're training them to do, because that's very satisfying when you're seeing clients who are getting fantastic results from your work. It can be the people who are easiest to work with. And these are all legitimate ways that you can think of. How do you then decide who it is that you're going to work with? What's also quite common, especially if you're not able to get enough of your own clients, is doing associate work, so working for other training providers. Could we just maybe have a show of hands of how many people do that, or have done that in the reasonably recent past? How many people work for other training providers? So I can see so quite a few. And I encourage my clients to think of the work that they don't want to do. Like, sometimes it's important, sometimes you have to do that work because you need the money. And I think of that as pot boiler work. It's work that you're doing to keep the pot boiling, but it's not the stuff that you really want to be doing. And it's good to make a really clear distinction in your mind of what's the work that's most rewarding, that's most profitable, that's most enjoyable. That's the work that you want to be doing with your own direct clients, and what's the kind of legacy pot boiler work that you're only doing because it's a way of making a living. And to be really clear about that, so as Kirsty says, you can then make a decision when it comes to turning down work. That's the work that you've got kind of earmarked to turn down as you start to build and develop your own client base. Is this making sense?
Oh yeah, I think there's just everyone going, oh, I know. Have you seen my bank account? Do you know how hard that feels to step into that space? A phrase my finance manager and I have, and she reminds me of it regularly, Victoria. She's like, Kirsty, trust the void. It's going to be okay. We've been here before. We've been doing this now for 17 years. Just trust the void. And that's hard. I really get that looking around the room and seeing some of the wry smile. And yet when we say, like someone said, the clear no, putting some time in and just seeing your diary, and I'll ask the next question, remember, seeing space in your diary and not filling it I promise you something always comes, something way more interesting always comes, and more into your sweet spot. Can I ask a question, Murray, of the group? So
Yeah.
just in the chat box, how far out is your diary booked with client work? And I'm talking like, just do it in months, 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months. Just a number would be great. How far out are people's, can they see their diary? Jackie, loving that. 6 months. Catherine, I'd expect that they're the size of your business.
12 months. Sabina,
Nice. Up to 6 months, 2 to 3 months, 12. Miss Pawsey, lucky you. Jason, 3 months. Oh, Amanda, new country. Where have you moved to? Yes, long-term rolling programs, Dave, I hear you. So yeah, so it feels like it's anywhere between two. The sort of norm is between 2 to 6 months, and some lucky buggers getting 12 months there.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of the nature of our industry that it's quite rare for anybody to have longer than 12 months, and 12 months is doing really well. If you're booking anything in 2025 at this time of year, you're doing all right.
Yeah.
So it's very common to have kind of 2 or 3 months worth of work booked in. But then when you look at the other side of your business, you've got and your personal life, you've got bills stretching out into the infinite future. So it can be, and I think it's great advice again, Kirsty, is that it takes a certain mindset to stiffen the sinews and steel the nerves, and to trust the process. And I would say that what it comes down to is knowing that you've got a reliable system that you can trust to keep bringing you more work in the future. And again, that's why it's important to have to implement a system that will bring you new clients, rather than just relying on the kind of random referrals from your immediate network and from chance encounters.
Now, the next question I'm going to ask you, Murray, it's probably like Kirsty, this takes like 5 hours to explain it, but as a couple of headlines, what is this system that people can start to think about and implement?
Yeah, well, I've kind of boiled it down, because it does take 5 hours to explain, but you can also explain it in a few minutes. So
great, let's do that one.
Yeah, okay. So I call it the client find system, because it's about finding clients. You can see what I did there. And find is an acronym for 4 activities that you must do to get clients to come to you. The first one is focus, and again, this is where niching is. The F in find is focus. This is where niching is so important, because focus. Well, I'll come back to explain what they mean in a minute.
Okay.
So the first one is focus. The second one is, because you've got to know who you're after. The second one is the I is interact, because you've got to get a conversation started with those people. It's not enough to just find them. They've got to know that you're there, and to start the conversation. The N stands for nurture, because, as you know, not everybody buys from you straight away. And particularly if you're dealing with corporates, they can take months or sometimes even years to make a decision.
I've got a year at the moment that's bubbling with that famous chicken restaurant in the UK. But they want to do the work, but it's been a year we've been having this conversation.
Yeah, they move at a glacial pace. And it's really important. The nurturing is really important, because you've got to stay in touch with people while they're making those decisions. Because otherwise they'll forget about you. And particularly if you're in a competitive tender situation, somebody else is doing the nurturing better than you, they're the ones who are bringing themselves to the forefront of that potential client's mind. So nurturing is very important as well. And then the D stands for do the deal. You can see I was struggling a bit with the acronym by the time I got to the end. But at some point, it's got to move on from the nurturing to actually convert the client and close the business. So those are the 4 activities: focus, interact, nurture, and do the deal. And so what you need then is a strategy. There are 4 strategies that sit under that. Focusing is about your connection strategy. Who are you targeting? What do you do for those people? Why do they care about that? How do they think about it? How do they talk about it? And why should they hire you rather than one of the thousands of other people that could potentially solve their problem? That's what your connection strategy is all about. Interaction needs an engagement strategy. What are you going to do to start the conversation with those people? How are you going to engage with them in order to get them to interact with you? And then the nurture strategy is what's going to be your process for doing that. I would suggest that email marketing, despite all the, for at least the last 15 years, people have been saying that email's dead and that email marketing doesn't work. It's still by far the most effective way to nurture relationships with people.
Absolutely. Just on that, Murray, when we've looked at, just in this instance, not through corporate, but in working with the community here, that's where we make the most sales. It's never off the back of a post on LinkedIn or Instagram. People click through on the newsletters that we send out. That's where we see that interaction come through.
Yeah. I'm not surprised to hear it. But it's not the only way of nurturing. You can also nurture through LinkedIn and other social media. Particularly using direct messaging is quite an effective way of nurturing. And
Nice.
And you can even, dare I say, phone people up. That's the way of nurturing the relationship.
You can't do that. That's like, you've got to talk to people.
Yeah.
I'm hoping, I'm looking around the screen, we're of an age, you know how to pick up the bloody telephone. And if that fills you full of dread, come and talk to some of the old farts on here, we'll teach you. Honestly, I do that quite a bit, and I just go, hi, I know this is novel, and we all have a good laugh, because how often do people pick up the phone now? It's such a shame. I love a good chat.
It's definitely becoming rarer since particularly since the lockdown. Everybody got used to doing Zoom calls, so people potentially answer their phones less, but even leaving a voicemail or a voice message or a video call can also be very effective.
Nice.
And your purpose of doing that with nurturing is just to remind people that you're there, because even if they don't respond and don't appear to respond, you're making them think about you, and that keeps you at the forefront of their mind. But at the same time, you can educate them along the you can educate them about what you can do for them, and all those questions that I said before.
Yeah.
Why they should hire you, demonstrate that you understand their problem and that you've got a potential solution that could work for them. So that's your nurture strategy. And then for doing the deal, you need a conversion strategy that helps you to filter from all the people that you're connected with. And I by the way, I don't like the term sales funnel, because I don't like the idea of kind of tipping people in the top and cranking the handle and hoping that something pops out at the end like a mincing machine. And I prefer to think of it as being, you're a magnet in a sea of iron filings, and you're drawing the people who are attracted to you. You're drawing them to you. That's really what your client find strategy is all about. It's about drawing the right people to you, which again, for you fans of niching, implies that you really need to understand who those people are and why they should be attracted to you. But then so your conversion strategy is really, how do you now filter from all the people that you're connected with for the ones that are getting closest to making a hiring decision, and how do you bring them into a one-to-one conversation with you so that you can then do the deal?
Okay. I'm very conscious. Some people have said, can they ask some questions? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Rich, you're on.
Why don't we just open it up to questions now then?
And by the way, for those who've never been in here before, honestly, just put your voice in the room. If loads of you want to talk at once, we'll just do a bit of a hands up, or put your question in chat if you don't like putting your voice in the room. Mr. Bellars, welcome. Good to see you, mate.
Hello. Good to see you too. Thank you. Thanks, Murray. So I often get, most regularly get new clients through participants that I've worked with, because I've built connections, especially with sort of longer term programs. And then, quite often they're from different organizations, and then they come back to me and said, oh, we like what you did. And also because of the way I build connections, quite often I will have continued the relationship and it's sort of friendly. And I'm now thinking, how do I get better at, because sometimes it blurs between friend and client, friend and potential clients. I mean, because we've had this deep connection through the learning experiences that I've experienced with them, okay, and it's my style as well. So then it feels weird to go to someone you've got this friendly connection with and effectively ask for business. So I keep nurturing the relationship. It's very good at that, but at some point It's moving from that friendly conversation to that business conversation. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. Yes. And I'd just like to say, by the way, that what you've just described sounds great, because a lot of people will hope for referrals from past clients, but you're describing quite a deliberate and well thought out system for staying in touch
It's
with
not
people.
deliberate and well thought out. It's it's natural.
It is
and
a system.
accidental.
Yeah. Okay. Well, 1 out of 3. Okay. But it is. I mean, you may have done it organically and without consciously implementing it as a system. But the fact that you're deliberately maintaining these relationships and it's bringing you new business is a good example of how to create referrals rather than just hoping that people will refer you. And I guess it's an interesting question. How do you, when you've got a kind of blurred lines? But you know, I guess it comes down to what's your mindset around what you're doing when you have these conversations with people. A lot of people hate the idea of selling. I don't know if you would you put yourself in that category? You don't like selling?
I don't like selling myself.
Right. Okay. Well,
that's getting a lot of nods around the room, by the way. A lot of people waving, going, they don't like selling themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't like selling either, but I think there's a different way of thinking about it, which is you're offering yourself in service. If you believe, as you clearly do, Richard, you clearly believe, you know, that what you're doing helps people, that what you're doing changes their lives potentially.
Mm-hmm.
Well, why wouldn't you offer that to a friend?
Yeah.
Why
wouldn't you? Because you do it with me.
I think so. Great. What I'm going to take from that is, because I can feel the shift in where I put my attention. So if I put it on, I'm driven a lot by service. So if I put it on that, I think also asking them who they know is another one where it's indirect. It's not like, right, you know, when you're going to buy one of my programs, it's who else do you know who'd be interested in it now that you've experienced.
That's great. That's a great idea. Yeah, because and I think fundamentally it's like when you're talking to people about what you can do, is that an ask or a give? Are you asking them for something or are you offering them something? That I think is a mindset shift, which helps to overcome this reluctance to raise it in a conversation, because it's and focus on your genuine and well-placed belief in the results that you can help them to obtain, because everyone wants to talk about a solution to a problem they've got, or a result that they haven't got that you can help them to achieve.
I think also it's being prepared to have a go. So I'll say this and I'll shut up. So a friend has just moved jobs, and he's been a friend for years. Kirsty knows him actually, and unofficially mentoring him, and I moved jobs. I said, great. So now's the chance when you can bring me in to do some paid work. So being a bit cheeky as well.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Well, I think that goes a long way as well, a bit of cheekiness.
Who else has got a question? Or even a noticing they want to put in the room? Laura, that's interesting. Just to comment on that last conversation, Murray, people feeling uncomfortable about asking for onward recommendations and referrals. Have you got, for me, often when I feel that uncomfortableness, it's because I haven't got quite the right words. Have you got any pithy sentences or ways that you say it?
Well, I think it's kind of an extension of the ask-give dichotomy that we were just discussing, because again, it's like asking for people are reluctant. The reason that people are reluctant to refer is because they have a relationship of trust with the people that they might refer you to, and they don't want to jeopardize that if they think that they're putting their connection into a sales conversation. So it's switching the emphasis round to thinking of it as that you're giving them a gift, and this can work very well with referrals if you can find a way. I don't know what sort of training you do, Laura, but is it possible that you could ask the people that you want to refer you, you give them something that they can give to their connections, that their connections then bring to you? I'm not explaining this very well. Let me have another go.
A freebie. Have you got a freebie, like a video or a document
like
that
a lead
talks
magnet,
to what
something
you
like that.
do? Yeah.
Yeah, because people are much more willing to share that, because then it's up to the person that they're referring you to make the connection, and they're not risking that relationship if the person doesn't like what it is that you do, for example.
And an observation on hearing everybody, and I've had many conversations about this, it is down to mindset. So I think, or I notice for many of us, and I have a horrible phrase, which I still quite like, called sort your shit out. Because if you don't sort your inner world out, it will start to impact your outer world. And therefore, doing some of that work on yourself, for your business, is so valuable, because you could have all these systems in place that Murray's referring to. And I don't think what Murray shared is anything new to any of you. You were all nodding as he was sharing it, going, oh yeah. And somebody might even be sitting there going, well, I was expecting something else. But often it's our it's like us doing it. So there's the doing of it, but there's the belief that I can, and that it will work out for me. So I think that is also like we need to find another way to add that in, because the mindset piece, Murray, is a big one, I think, in Find. Phil,
yeah, it's a very big one, and pretty much almost all of my clients have increased their prices as a result of working with me, which is one example that I think that most trainers undersell themselves. And a lot of it is to do with having confidence and being able to really understand, really deeply understand, what's the value that you're providing to clients. Because once you do understand that, then these conversations become a lot easier. And by the way, I love INPD. I love that form of word. That's great. Who's that?
It's Alison. She's on as INPD. Nick, what's your question?
So hiya everybody.
Hello.
And Murray.
Hi,
Firstly, Murray, amazing haircut. Love the look. You're killing it.
Thank you. Yes. You
very
too.
Popular. Love it. Secondly, I went freelance just because I really wasn't enjoying where I'd been for 10 years anymore. 21. And I have ADHD, and I really struggle with motivating myself. And I just find it so much easier if people give me work. And that's my thing, is that people give me work that I can do and that I'm known for doing well, but doesn't light me up. And then I'm not getting out there and trying to find the work and trying to find the work that does excite me, because people are giving me something and it's like, it's fine. It just about covers everything, it covers the bills and almost. And I get stuck in that whole, I'm in a 6-month contract right now creating e-learning, which is fine. I don't mind it. I enjoy creating e-learning videos. I'll be doing a bit of training as well, face-to-face, but it's not doing what I love. And I get, it's just what's easy.
Yes.
Like, how do you, I don't even know what the question is, but you know where I'm coming from.
I do. I totally understand it. And the analogy that I use is that going after the work that really excites you and lights you up is like working out at the gym and doing the stuff that people, and doing the stuff that that comes easily is like sitting on the sofa eating junk food. Now, there's nothing wrong with sitting on the sofa eating junk food now and then, but you wouldn't want, if you live like that, it's unhealthy, it's bad for you in the long run. So it's really finding a balance between those things. Whereas going to the gym is hard work, it takes effort, it's easy to put off, procrastinate, and avoid. But when you do go and do it, you get a big rush of, you feel great afterwards, and it builds your muscle. So that's why I use this analogy, because when you're motivated to go and look for the work that really lights you up, it's very, very satisfying when you do it. And then that satisfaction becomes addictive, and you want more of it. And so that will maybe motivate you to do more of it. But I do recognize the tendency to kind of pick the low hanging fruit and to go for what's easy. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but it's establishing what for you is the balance, because most of the people that I know who do associate work don't want to give it up altogether, because because it's easy to come by. And it sometimes means that you're working with organizations that you might not get to work with otherwise. You can get some good learning from it. There's lots of reasons why associate work is good and worth doing, but it's really finding what's the balance. You keep a little bit of that, but increase the balance of your own work, so that your working life can give you more satisfaction than just kind of taking what comes easy. I don't know if that's
that's great, and it makes me think about that. I've just started a 6-month contract, and it's a great opportunity to spend those 6 months planning what I want to do next, and actually getting in contact with the people that I do want to work with.
Yeah.
So yeah,
that's brilliant, and that's another one of the advantages of the work that comes easily. It can provide you with a base of regular income. That means that you're not having to worry about how you're going to pay the bills, as long as it leaves you enough time to then develop the other relationships that can lead to the more fulfilling business when this contract comes to an end.
What's really interesting, Nick says some comments for you in the chat about finding a buddy, accountability partner, just having someone to chat things through with, because I know that probably plays to you, having someone to talk out loud. So I know that's one of your preferences. I think there's another piece as well for many of us here, that we might start out in the world as an associate, as we use in the UK and Europe, or a subcontractor. And then there becomes this time where suddenly you go, oh, but I could do this myself. And then people go off and look for direct clients. And then you suddenly go, whoa, that's a different mindset required again. And it can be quite a challenge to find direct clients. I've now got people that I know really well who've turned around and said, do you know what? I'm just going to be a brilliant associate. I do not need the hassle of finding all my own clients. It's actually exhausting me. I don't get any joy from doing it. So I think there's this sort of this piece that it's okay to turn around and go, I'm just going to be a brilliant associate for 3 companies in my sweet spot and have joy. Because back to where Murray started the conversation, I came into this world to help others, to see them get their ahas, to light them up. And therefore, if I can be doing that 3 days a week on my feet delivering, versus feeling like I've got to be out there knocking on doors, selling myself, and it makes me feel ick, is that not, that's okay.
Yeah,
so
I would totally agree. I would completely agree with that. I was an associate myself for 10 years without doing any of my own direct work. And then when I started selling to my own clients, I found that it was much, much harder than I thought it was going to be. So
it is hard.
I've trod that route as well. And I think it's absolutely fine to just do associate work if that's what you want to do. And I know several people who do work.
I do too. I do too.
But also all associate work is not the same. And my goal as an associate was always to become the kind of premium associate that the company came to if it was a special project. So for example, if it was a C-suite, or if it was a pilot for a new program with an important client, or if it was a bunch of delegates that were perceived to be difficult, they would come to me. And then when you position yourself like that, you can then command higher rates, and coaching other associates and that sort of thing.
Nice.
So it's also worth thinking, if you do go down the associate route, to think what are the best associate jobs that you can get to. Also,
just want to flag a whole other conversation, and I feel like I want to maybe repeat this whole thing about pricing. Might do another workshop on it. For those people who are moving from associate and looking for direct clients, through our research last year, it was very clear that if you did both associate work and direct client work, you squeezed the training companies on your associate rates and really pushed up your associate rates, but you played down your direct client rates. You did not charge enough, versus companies who are purely direct to client, like myself, Nicole, and some of you are like Jason. Like, please come and talk to me if you're thinking of moving from associate to direct client, and we can talk about your pricing, because you don't honor your value. You play it down way too much. Nearly to fit you. There's about 40% you leave on the table every time you go in to have a conversation with a client. So, Jason, hello.
Hello. As you know, I do a bit of coaching and associate work, as well as direct clients. And the way I look at it is, if I'm coaching and I'm being given coaching clients, I think it as a sales funnel in my head, because I'm helping them to get what they want within their companies, and they're going to spread the word with their other people in their organization about us naturally assuming that I do a great, wonderful job, that they're going to do a ripple effect. And that's how I perceive it. And then if I'm doing associate work, like I did yesterday, I will talk about it on social media, because I want to give value forward. I won't go specifics, but I might top level overview on the value that it's given. And I know on the back of that, I get work, because it's social proof and I'm giving social evidence on the basis of that, using the Robert Cialdini's laws of influence as an example. And I find that works really, really well, because I just want to create that ripple effect. And for me, it works.
Nice. Just a noticing, it's all the men talking today. Is that because we're in a real masculine, logical, talking about, systems? And I'm looking, you're all smiling at me. I can see you all. And then the women are all just sitting there going, I'm just really curious. It's like, from a female perspective, I'll just share like a feminine, not female, feminine perspective. I know I have resisted systems, goals, structure in SOF forever. And it really, I fight against it because of my preferences in life as well. And I'm also learning I probably need to do it, because it would just give me some boundaries within which to play. So I'm just curious about, like, other people, other women with the feminine energy could be identified as male as well. What are you noticing, girls? Ali.
Kirsty, I'm happy to start if no one else is.
Go.
So I come from partly a sales background, and I've always thought of sales as solving problems. So it's about people, problems, and bridging the gap. So my first instinct is to find out as much as I can about the people, as much as I can about their problems, and then see if I'm the right fit to solve the problem.
Nice.
And I take the word sales out of the equation completely.
Brilliant. Yeah. Yeah, it's so true what you're saying, and especially the personal aspect, because it's something that I've noticed actually when training groups of salespeople, that a lot of salespeople are actually quite reluctant to ask what they think is questions that are too personal. So, for example, when selling into corporates, they'll shy away from asking questions like, how does this situation affect you personally? How does this situation affect you professionally? And I think they're really, really powerful questions to ask, because there are a few people that care about the company so much that, if you cut them in half, they'd have the name of the company and the logo going through them like a stick of rock. But people like that are quite rare. And mostly people care a little bit about the company, but what they really care about is themselves and the impact that the work situation they're in is having on their own personal situation. So I think it's very, very valid to get into those kind of questions with people. And I've never seen anybody reluctant to talk about how they're being personally affected by the situation that you can help them to resolve. And I think your attitude and your mindset towards seeing it as a problem-solving activity, I think, is brilliant. That's the best way to think. I try and avoid using the word sales altogether. I think of it as business development, because you're developing your business, but you're also developing your client's business through the conversations that you're having with them. And that's what clients want to know. What they're really interested in, as I briefly mentioned earlier, they've either got a problem that they don't want, or they've got a result that they do want that they haven't got. And that's what they really care about. And so when you're getting into business development conversations, it's about really understanding what is the problem that you can solve for people, and why does it matter? Why do they care about it? And how is their life going to be better when that problem is solved, or when that result is achieved? Sorry, go on.
No, finish.
Yeah,
I'll add to it later.
And really, the goal of your marketing should be to bring you into conversations with potential clients that are so well qualified that actually, when you're having that conversation, they already know that you've probably got a solution to a problem that they're experiencing, or a result that they want to achieve. And the conversation is really about seeing how it will fit in their individual circumstances, their specific set of circumstances. And so if there's a good fit, they're going to want to work with you. And if it's not a good fit, you wouldn't want to work with them, because it would predictably turn out badly if there isn't a good fit. So thanks for raising that, Alison. I think you've brought into the conversation a really great that's a really great description of the mindset around having these business development conversations, and how taking the word sales out of the vocabulary altogether can make those conversations an awful lot easier.
Yeah.
And I'm just conscious, I'm just going to name it, Ali, we can stay talking. It's 10 o'clock, so we always finish hard at 10. If we will carry on the conversation though, so we always have the after party. So if you want to stay joining the conversation, you are so welcome. If you are new here and you came through LinkedIn, we can't access your email addresses or anything like that. So if you do want to stay in contact and come to another pod, can I just encourage you, go check out the website. You'll get a pop-up to join a newsletter, or you can go and find the pod sign up link and just go through that way, and that way you'll always get a reminder. So the pod happens the first Friday of every month. It's the same Zoom link, so if you're like the sort of person who just likes to chuck something into their calendar, so you can just see it, it's marked, you would be so welcome. Just want to do a formal thank you to Murray, and can we just give him a round of applause. You can also find Murray, can you chuck into the link,
the chat,
yeah, just where people can find you as well?
Sure, will do.
Because we've only gone hit the tip of an iceberg, and I know there's so much more to this. And as Richard said, LZ in here, like, he's had coaching with Murray, and I know some of you have as well. And so there's always that possibility. Yes, Phil, there's another thing you can do with SOF is the WhatsApp link. I don't have WhatsApp on my computer, so if you want to put it in, Phil, that would be amazing. So there's a WhatsApp group for School of Facilitation as well that's got 100+ people chatting in there, so feel free to join that and come and chat. But we're going to have the after party now, so if you want to stay, ask questions, hang out, introduce yourself, it would be lovely for you to do so. Who else has got a question that they'd like to, or an observation that they want to put in the room? Liz, did I see your hand go up, or was that a goodbye? Everyone's like, oh. Hey, Kate.
Hi, I'm Kate. It's my first pod.
Okay.
Welcome.
And it's my first week as a freelancer.
Yay! Congratulations.
I just wondered, where would you begin if you were beginning at the beginning with all of this? What would be the first 3 things you would do?
Okay, here's the invitation. Murray, speak to it. The rest of you, put one thing in the chat box that if you were starting again, what advice would you give Kate?
Yeah, so a really important question is, what are you solving for? What's the problem that you're solving for? And so we've been talking about the client find system, and those kind of systems and strategies are really about how do you build your pipeline over the longer term. But when you're just starting out, what you're solving for usually is to get some revenue in quick, short-term revenue. So when you're solving for short-term revenue, that's a very different challenge than building a pipeline over the longer term. And the best way to build revenue in the short term is to compile a list of people who you think are the most likely to either give you work or put you in touch with someone who will give you work, as I mentioned earlier, out of your first degree network, and to contact those people in the most organic way you possibly can, ideally by calling them up or getting them onto a call with you as soon as possible, because that way you can have genuine, real, organic, biological conversations. I mean, biological in terms of, not the topic, but the fact that you're speaking directly to another human. That is going to be the fastest way to build revenue in the short term. So I would say that is where to put your focus, on building those relationships as rapidly as possible. And at the same time, also having an eye to how do you then develop your systems over the longer term. And by the way, what I described as the client find system can be very, very simple. It doesn't have to be complicated, and also it's non-prescriptive. So I've I've had people totally automate all of it, a highly technical way of doing it. But I've also had clients who've used the client find system to go out, putting up flyers, posters, doorstepping people, going on the knock on industrial estates and that kind of thing, using the same system. So it's non-prescriptive. It's not about having a specific method of doing things, but it's really to do with how you think about it and what your strategies are. So it's really thinking about how do you connect with people, how can you engage with them, what are you going to do to, once you've made those connections, to nurture them, and how to get people into those one-to-one conversations. So for you, it's kind of having a balance between those two things, but with the emphasis very much on getting into the conversations that are going to bring you business in the short term from people that you already know, the warmest leads you've got. Is that useful, Kate?
Super helpful, thank you. And thank you,
Kate, in the chat.
Yeah,
we've got Niche, find your community, who'll be your cheerleaders, come and hang out with us. She says, unapologetically. We've also got take holiday. It's really easy not to take holiday, so book your holidays in. Someone said use LinkedIn Premium. Someone said write a list of all your past connections that you can reconnect with. I like that one. Yeah, define your niche again, connect with a network, let your network know what you're doing. That's a really good one as well, just even at the number one level, that immediate group of people. Every time you're talking, even if it's not business people, it's like your friends and family, like start sharing with them, because you never know who they then talk to. That's the way I perceive it. People will tell. Even my best mate, after 17 years, finally said to me yesterday, yeah, my team might need some facilitation skills. About fucking time. The amount of coaching I've done for you, and she works for AstraZeneca, I'm like, I'll definitely come and do some work for you guys. Didn't jump down her throat, but I'll be talking to her about it this weekend. Cool. Sorry, I saw Marjorie. Hello, love. I saw your hand go up. Good to see you.
Hi, it's glad to be back because I never get to be here these days. It's a question. The moment I start talking about what I offer and what I do, I clam up. Normally, I can chat for England. I have no problem. But when it's about talking about what I do, how can I get over that? Because the other day, someone offered me a great opportunity and I clammed up and I actually was a blabbering fool. So help, please.
Ooh.
Yeah, I know. I know what you mean, because it is actually. I think it's genuinely hard because we're so close to what it is that we do, and to us it seems so obvious. And the important thing to remember is that to the other person it's not obvious, and how you explain it is really significant to whether or not they kind of latch on to the conversation. And I think the key to it, I would say, is you're familiar with the concept of an elevator pitch. How do you explain what you do in 30 seconds or in 3 sentences or whatever? It's really refining that, and I find that we've got such great tools available with AI like ChatGPT that you can just give ChatGPT as much detail as you possibly can about what it is that you do and who it is that you're doing it for, which is also really significant. And get into a conversation with ChatGPT. I use Claude, by the way, which is another alternative because I find it's more organic and more human sounding than ChatGPT. But which you can also use Bing or Copilot or whatever, Gemini. So they'll all do the job pretty well. You give it all the detail and ask the chat, the AI, to summarize in 50 words what is it that you do in a way that is intended to sound motivating to the people that you want to be working with. And it will churn out something that probably might sound a bit robotic or isn't quite like you, but it will really give you a good starting point to then be able to articulate what it is that you do in a very short sentence. And ideally, when you tell people what it is that you do, the only question that you want them to be asking is, how do you do that? So if you can weave into it some kind of air of mystery, what is it that you do, Marjorie, if you don't mind my asking?
I'm a goal mapping practitioner, so I teach people to set goals using the left and the right side of the brain, looking at what their purpose is, the legacy they want to leave, set the goals in alignment to that. And then I get them to look at who they need to be at their higher self to achieve it and what habits and actions they need to create to move towards it.
Great. Okay. Brilliant. That sounds great. And what I notice about what you're saying is that in your description of it, you're talking quite a lot about how you do it, how you achieve the outcome with people. So you might want to think about taking that detail out, because that's when they say, how do you do that? That's your answer to what you've got there is your answer to the question, how do you do that? So really, if you think about what are the outcomes that you produce for people, because if you think about the conversation we were having earlier about problems and results, what problems have they got that they want to go away? Or what result have they not got that they want to accomplish that you can help them to either get rid of the problem or achieve the result? And when you talk about that, then if you're talking to the right kind of people who have got that problem or want that result, when they hear that you can solve it for them, they're going to ask, how do you do that? And then you can say what you just said. Nice. So I think that's a good area to focus. What's the outcome that you produce for people?
Nice. Hey,
great question. Thanks, Marjorie.
Good to see you.
Hello. Thanks, Murray. It's been thought-provoking for sure, and interesting, Kirsty's observation about maybe the more process avoidant ones of us have just been a little bit this morning. It was just sort of bouncing off of what Marjorie was saying and what Alison was saying earlier. I have so my line is, I train engineers how not to be robots. That's what I say. And so Marjorie, kind of tying into, you're very much about the how and the magic of what you're doing. But I've found that when people say, oh, what do you do? I'm sometimes a bumbling, well, I do a bit of this and I do a bit of that and I do whatever you need me to do, really, because, I can do it all. So I've found that I train engineers how not to be robots sort of stops the conversation for a minute. And then they're like, oh, what does that mean? And they're, I do leadership training and communication and, team coaching and blah, blah, blah. And then it's an opportunity for me to put it back to them and find out what they might need from that type of experience. So if you're feeling uncomfortable about saying what you do and all of that kind of stuff, actually putting it back to their challenge, then you can kind of wrap it around them rather than all the wonderful things that you could be doing for them, because I'm sure there's loads of them. So I wonder if there is a why or an outcome thing that you can get a one sentence that prompts, oh, what's that? And then you can start saying that. And also, I think this is being recorded.
I'll delete all this bit out, by the way.
What you said was beautiful. I don't know if you can send Marjorie her recording, because actually you've nailed your elevator pitch. Like what you said was clear and wonderful. So keep up with that. That's all.
Nice. I'm conscious of Murray and his time and not sort of eating it all up. Has anyone got another question? We'll just take one more question and then I'm quite happy to hang and chat, but I also want to respect Murray's morning. Katia, good to meet you. Anyone else want to say hello? Or you just might want to just chat with other people. Peter, where are you? Are you in Brisbane? Did I see that was where you were, Peter?
Yes, yeah. So 3 weeks in from New Zealand, so we've only just moved over.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and very early stages of trying to start my own facilitation consulting business in community development. And so looking at how we bridge that alignment gap between communities and local government.
Hold on, didn't I meet you with Kerry Price?
Quite possibly, yes.
I think we met through Kerry Price. Leanne Hughes is someone to go find in Brisbane, for sure. I don't know if you know Leanne.
Absolutely been binge listening to her podcast.
Have you been binge listening? Okay.
Same with yours.
Oh, thank you. Leanne Hughes, everybody, if you want to hear a very fast Australian woman speak about facilitation and what it takes, she has a great podcast called First Time Facilitator. And she does some really interesting stuff on YouTube as well. She's very generous with what she shares. So yeah, But welcome, Peter. It was lovely to see you. Murray, I'd like to say a massive thank you for your generosity of sharing and time and wisdom. I don't really want to feel like we're hogging your Friday morning. So if you want to stay, feel free. Otherwise, I'm going to just stay for another 10 minutes and chat all things what we just chat about.
Yeah, sure.
I'd love
to stay to the end, because I have to say I'm very much enjoying being here, and thanks very much for inviting me along.
Oh, my pleasure. I'm going to hit stop on the recording though, so we can just change the level of the chat. If you're still listening, hope that was useful.